let us. So
It does that?
I have until 3:09. Hi, I
Oh.
think we're live now. Hi, guys.
Oh, yep. Hi.
Sorry for the
We're
delay.
all we're always a calamity.
Well, some of the stuff, it seems like it would be pretty straightforward, and then it ends up not being, and it's like, why?
Right. So last week, Randy could not have headphones, otherwise it just echoed at us. And now this week, but Missy can't have headphones, otherwise it was just echo at us. So there's no like.
It's just going to have to come with time and a learning curve, a big learning curve. So what's new?
So it's kind of a bittersweet day for me in terms of, obviously I've been working for 2 months without any students around. And last Wednesday was the last day of class, and today's graduation. And
Oh, goodness.
yeah, I had 3 students I was really close to who are graduating, and I just received a really nice email from one of them. So it's a little sad.
Yeah. Is anybody doing anything cool for like their graduations that you've heard of anything neat or different? Or I've seen some stuff just in my neighborhood, like you honk, she drinks, or different things. So
Yeah. Cornell had I can't even tell you what they said it was, but like they had pictures of all the seniors and they had them displayed up in lights on the buildings
oh,
to
cool.
kind of show them how they imprinted the community. So
That's neat.
yeah, we'll be doing a ceremony for them at some point when they can come back on campus. So
Nice.
yeah.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How was your week, guys? Guess these are going in the trash.
It's good.
I'm trying to remember
Yeah?
what the hell even happened this week. I took some more time off, a little bit in and out. We're going to open regular hours tomorrow, so it's still safe and social distance and all that stuff. But we have to get back. People are aching and needing inspectors are needing people to be out, get things done and inspected, and so we got to be. We're technically considered essential for fire protection, so we've done it
As you should be.
right, but we've done it as long as we could. So, but now's the time. We need to get back up and rolling a little bit. So, but I took some time off before we have to. I don't know what we're gonna run into, So,
That's half the fun.
right,
Not knowing.
not knowing.
So, that's a lovely kitty cat. Nice pussy.
God damn it, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, God, aren't we great today, guys?
We worked super hard yesterday in the yard all day because, well, one, we thought it was supposed to rain all day, and it didn't. And we thought it was supposed to rain all day today, so we're like, we'll just get it all done today. And then today, we can just play with Legos. So that's what we've been doing.
Hey.
Yeah. Good times.
How is everybody, like, emotional wise? Like, last week was kind of rough for all of us, but how about you guys? This week was a little bit better for me, even though it was busier at work, but emotionally, I don't feel like I'm going insane.
If the allergies would let up, I'd probably be feeling a lot better. These trees need to stop. Hashtag Midwest Girl Life.
Right. Today's I was fine up until yesterday. Yesterday I got kind of weepy and emotional, but so yeah. It looks like Suzanne's having some physical stuff as well, so I feel you.
All right. So who's going to rip the Band-Aid off? Randy, I choose you.
Religion?
Yep.
Well,
Oh,
Sarah had a question that she was talking about, and I can't remember what that was.
Yes.
I thought we would just jump right into that. I mean, I think we've all had some kind of, most of us, if we grew up in a family that went to church or a family that valued that, jumping into a spiritual path has been a little rocky or segregating, until we come to terms with that. And how do we come to terms with that? And I think that's kind of what Sarah was talking about, wasn't it? I'm going to look quick.
Sounds
I
right
didn't.
from what I remember.
Did she put it in the comments in the comments this week? Is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
If you guys knew how precariously positioned my laptop was, you would probably cry. I'll send you a picture later.
Uh-oh.
So she said, when I started my journey, I had lots of trouble with this organized religion, atheism, paganism. Where did I fit? My take is going to sound crass and short sighted, but I'm not sure how else to say it. Organized religion helps those who aren't really on the path to ascension stay connected to spirit. Looking back on that concept of God, it seems so small compared to my view of the universe and how we fit into it now. It's also why I have trouble with using verbiage like gods and angels. It was force fed to me as a child, and it was expected I would just blindly follow. When my questions couldn't be answered, I said, and found my own way. So there's a lot packed in there that I can relate to. As a kid up until I was 18 and went away to college, I was expected to go to church every Sunday, every Wednesday, that we had Bible study or communion, catechism, whatever we called it, I can't remember. I was expected to be there. And growing up in a small town, that's just what you did. I didn't really question it. And then when I was off on my own, especially when we moved to Texas, I didn't go to church because I didn't have to. Nobody was there telling me I had to do it. And there's been some amount of guilt that has come from that, just because my mom will say, of all of you kids, I thought you would be the one that would always go to church. And the last time she said that to me was probably 2 years ago.
Wow.
And I've just never really known how to respond to that, other than just shut my mouth and respect my mother. So, so there's that. Anybody have a similar experience with growing up that way and being expected to do these things?
oh, for sure. For sure.
You did too, Jen?
Yeah, we were Presbyterian, but kind of very similar. I think very similar, both you and the comment is that it was expected and you force fed a little bit. But again, kind of back to, I think my mom and my family found it as a band-aid for what they were going through, and they ended up taking on this persona of the church life, and then when I would ask questions and be like not able to receive answers or be told it's just the way it is because of right, then you just take it as what I preach it to you as, and that be that. And I just kind of slowly weeded out after high school. I just didn't go, and having a few moments finding my own path. I think a lot of people find that when they are being forced out or being shunned for questioning things is one of the biggest things I think people find these alternative avenues. That's definitely my avenue. How I got into a lot of this stuff is like, oh my gosh, there is another way. Wow, and that resonates, and that fits. That's awesome.
Right.
And then coming back home at one point, and there was this one comment I remember at one holiday, and my uncle and my mom were there at the table. I don't even know what, and I had made a comment very freely, very myself, and just hello, and there's something about them saying, well, you should because you're a Christian woman. And I went, funny story. I'm not. And that just, that was at the moment where I was lashing out, that teenage, I was well into my 20s, but that teenage, like, lash out, like, now
Rebellion.
I'll show you I'm not a Christian and I'm still a good person. And I still commune with God in my own way. And so it kind of,
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of that little jab at that I could take
Yeah.
when I could take it. But it's calmed down now and they're seeing, an opening. A lot of, I think it comes. And sometimes you do. You just have to shut your mouth and not, you know, uh, engage in those conversations if you can, if they're not going to be open to it. Very similar to politics, very similar religion and politics. Everybody's so afraid of. So,
Which is the stuff we should be talking the most about,
Right.
like religion and politics. I mean, that's that we've hushed that all down because it helps to keep the masses controlled. That's my perspective. Because if we don't talk about these hot buttons, then they can tell us, they being the systemic pieces, can tell us how we feel or tell us how it's going to be, and you just don't talk about it, and that's the way it's going to be. And I think you should talk about the things like, I never understood why we can't talk about how much we make. I don't care how much you make, right? I don't care where you go to church. I don't care who you vote for. Like, if you're nice to me and you're not hurting children and puppies, not really any of my business. You know? I think the time for accepting outside, sorry, Lena, I think the time for accepting outside authority and not questioning it, like, I think Randy mentioned that initially, I think that's over collectively. Sorry, go ahead, Lena.
Oh, you're fine. I had a similar experience to Randy and Jen where I was raised in a Catholic family, but it was more so from my grandparents' generation. They were the ones that were, you go to church every Sunday, you become a member officially, you donate your time and money to the church, and you have a community there, and we would go, definitely around the holidays, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all of those, and I would go to CCD classes on Wednesday nights, and I was, I went through confirmation and all that, but it didn't fit, or at least I didn't fit there, and I didn't really have the words to describe why until I got older, and then I was like, there's a lot of stifling happening here, and then I realized basically a lot of like the jealous God and the controlling God that they're describing. I'm like, that makes zero sense to me. So, and we can go on a tangent about that for who knows how long. But and then when I started to learn about metaphysics, I was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense. And then if you look back through history about how Christianity wiped out, the pagan cultures and the traditional religions, the older religions, it's like, okay, well, you're just wanted to control people that way. So, yeah.
So
I see
in
where it had
college-
its purpose, too,
Right.
though.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So when I went to college, my one of my degrees is in anthropology. So of course, anthropology and religion are very closely linked, and I just started questioning so much. And my favorite professor, oh my God, Mr. Harvey Cleaver, coolest guy ever. But he asked the question once, and I can't remember the exact question, but it had something to do with what part of culture controls people or is in place to control people or whatever. And I was like, I know what that is. And he's like, what? And I'm like, religion, the church. And he's like, no, not at all. And I'm like, I don't understand. And we still, like, up until a couple of years ago, we would still kind of argue about this in email. And what I came to find out after that, though, was that before he became an anthropology professor, he had been in the seminary. And so
Oh,
it was really hard for him to hear this. that somebody would think that religion and the church was just to control people and, being used by kings and rulers to control the people and to rob the people and to make the people fear, if they don't act a certain way, this is what's going to happen to them. And so I think that's when my questioning really started, getting away from home, not having to go, not having my mom there telling me I have to go. I was just like, fuck no. I don't have to get up to go to church. I'm not going to.
So what was his answer to that question?
I can't remember. God, because it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
How could it be anything else? We would walk out of church and people would be like, "Oh, that was a really good sermon," and I'd be like, "I really? Like, what part of that touched you? And now are you going to proceed in your week and be a good person, or are you just going to turn back into that asshole that you were 2 hours ago before you came here?" It was like in a small town, you go to church so that you're seen going to church, not so that you go to church to have a relationship with God or to be a better person. That's not widespread, obviously, because some people really do feel a deep connection, and I respect that. But there are the people there that are just going because they feel pressured, because then the question that they're going to hear on Monday when they go to work is, well, I didn't see you in church on Sunday. Where were you?
Especially in a smaller town.
Very small town.
Yeah. So I think that's a huge dynamic and in this whole interplay.
Yeah.
So
Really
what do you think, so I had my, my mom, my parents didn't make me go to church. I chose to go to church when I started raising children. Because I thought that I had to sort of, that was what I needed to do, was to expose them to all of the things that I could expose them to. And it's not that I really loved the church that I attended. I loved the fellowship. I loved the people that I met through the church. And I loved everything that went with it. I did not care for the systemic piece of it and the large, when the big presbytery would get involved, or anything that was like the rules of this is how this church has to worship because this is how we do it. But I will say that I have experienced multiple synods, multiple religions, and they're not all like that. So I'm wondering if, do you think that the experience is beneficial? Where I'm going with this is, I got involved because of my kids. Initially, I enjoyed it later, and I got benefit from it because our pastor would read from the Bible and then take that and apply it to something that was normal and life giving. It gave me perspective, I guess, things to chew on, things to think about. And we sang a lot. And I went to a contemporary service, mostly that we sat at a table and chairs. We didn't sit in pews. So it was never a traditional church in the sense of pews and you could sit in the front row and it was okay. That's something that the Baptists and the Lutherans don't sit in the front row. That's not a thing you do. And I was I'll never forget the first time going to church with the Lutherans, and I'm just and they're all going,
no.
Don't do it.
What are you doing?
What's the problem? I don't see this. But do you think that it is a benefit or a detriment to kids to have that in their life?
So, I tried going back to the church twice for my daughter because I thought too that this is something that she needed for her foundation and that she could decide later on in her life if this is what she wanted. And at the time we lived in Houston, Texas. And so I was trying to find a church in Houston. Right? Trying to find a church in Texas, and I drove past the Lutheran church in the small town or the suburb that we lived in. And it said, it was a Lutheran church. I'd looked at it and thought this might be it. And then the day that I drove past and it said, "We welcome everybody, gays and straights alike," or something like that. Is like, that's the church. I'm in Houston, Texas, and they're saying that gay people are accepted there. Hell yeah, that's where I'm gonna go. And I loved. We went once. Aspen and I went once. Matt would not go because he's never gone to church. And he did have a really good sermon, and he was talking about how he yelled at his kids earlier in that week and he had sworn at them and he had said really vile things that he was not proud of, but he was there standing in front of us to tell us that he's just a normal person, and that whatever the point of the sermon was. And I thought, I can really relate to this guy, but I cannot connect. This is not how I connect. And so then years later, I think when Aspen was like 13 or 14, we were here in Cedar Rapids. We tried going to a church again because she wanted to go there. And it just got to the point where it was like, I can drive you on Wednesdays and I can drive you on Sundays, but I can't go here. This doesn't feel right for me.
Well, good for you for being able to say so. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. And Max has never really experienced any of this. He's experienced more of the spiritual stuff. So he'll come to us and say, "I need to be smudged. Can you take the drum upstairs and drum around?" So he gets it from that aspect. And I'm not answering your question really well, but I think it just depends on the person. I mean, I was forced to go to church, and look how I turned out.
Right.
And trying to get my daughter to go to church and stay a lifelong Christian or whatever religion she chooses, it's not for me. It's not for me to decide.
That's why I love you.
Thank you.
I like Suzanne's comment here a little bit. You can't turn from something you don't know, nothing about. And I think that relates to a couple of different things that we should touch on today a little bit too, is that, I think it's important to explore. So if they're going to want to explore the church and Christianity, they should also have the opportunity. Why don't you try other religions? There's many. I didn't even know growing up, again, small town. Our church was literally in a town that had a population of 60. Like,
Wow.
But you guys have very similar stories in that way. So like how common do you think that is for people that like this is small town America?
It is very common, because I know when I came just to Cedar Rapids, for instance, I didn't know there's so many other options and other churches or places of worship for other religions. And it would be really cool. I'm not a parent, obviously, but really cool if I were to be like, okay, where do you feel called to? Do you want to explore any of this? And give you an option. Can we, are we welcome? Can I bring him into experience this, see if this fits for him? That's what I would have loved as a kid, the option of having that buffet and of experiences. So that you do know, because I think that's part of, I think we get so, which is great from our culture and our family and all of this. This is where our foundation and roots are. But to know that there's just so much more out there, and that I can figure out, and that was great for Aspen to see from you, Randy, of like, say, no, this doesn't fit me, but I'll still take you, because if you still want to go. I think that's a huge example that I would love to see from more people of all religions, especially Christianity, So
Do you think you can have I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do you think you can have foundation and roots if you don't go to church? Because I mean, in terms of this was what my family identifies with. Do you think that you're getting somehow gypped by not having a family that attends church, or a family that has a cultural observation of some sort? Do you think that lessens the experience of being a human, to not have that sort of cultural experience?
No. I think for those, I think we're going to share. Jamie made a little article earlier today that was just absolutely perfect. And in it, I loved how there was one moment that had asked, so however we experience God, no matter what it is still valid. And it even brought in atheism. However, an atheist chooses, that is still valid. They're just experiencing God in a non-God-like way. And I was like, thank you, right? So if you don't have that, you're still getting, I think it's a matter of being kind and being good, and as long as we're bringing good values, some people need those values from the church because they don't get it anywhere else. That's part of it too. I don't get it. I get it on Sundays and that's it. Right? Sometimes people need values from my workplace or my family or my culture or this or that. I mean, there's values. As long as you're getting those in tolerance and I don't know. I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but no, I don't think you need a religion or a spirituality at all. There are many well-rounded, good people out there who are not spiritual in any sense. So does
But they're
that make them
moral
any
and ethical people.
Right.
right?
Right.
I mean, Jamie
And I
and I
think-
talk about this a lot because we are both very morally and ethically minded people. And so morally and ethically minded that we can't understand a lot of the shit that happens in the world, right? But I think teaching your kids that, just to be a good person, to be kind to others, to do the right thing when nobody's watching, those are basic principles and tenets of religion, but also spirituality and just being a good moral and ethical person. I mean, following what is in your heart and honoring that is not something that your typical church is going to tell you to do. Because I've been thinking about this just a lot today, not recently, but today. It's like some of the questions that we ask ourselves on a spiritual path is, who am I? Why am I here? What's the purpose of all of this? And I think the answers to that as a spiritually minded person are much different than if you're just a purely religious person and you're going to church and your pastor's telling you, giving you a sermon every week and then rotely going through the church service with the same prayers and the same order of everything and, familiar songs. It's just basically handed to you like, here, we're going to tell you who you are. We're going to tell you why we're here. We're going to tell you what the purpose of all of this is. And there's a lot of, I think with religion, purely religion, because you can be both spiritual and religious at the same time. And spiritual, all. But if you're just purely religious, I think there's a lot of fear that gets bred into you because you're like, I have to do all these good things now before I die, because I need my life after this to be in heaven. Where as a spiritually minded person, we kind of see through the illusion of that because we realize, one, we are a spiritual being having a human experience, like after we leave here, we're just back to heaven or whatever you want to call that place. What was that?
Oh, sorry,
Religious
Sarah.
is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What?
Oh,
Miss
Is
what's
Missy
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 talking to us?
I think when I hit my name, it's gonna unmute me, and it doesn't. It never works. I think you hit on something super important. I think to me, in my brain, in my very humble perspective, I think organized religion equals a fear mindset and a fear-based mindset. You must do this to equal this. Only through Jesus Christ can you get to God. That it's written in the Bible. Like if you want to get into that conversation, you can only get into heaven through Jesus Christ. That's the only way you're going to heaven. And there are people that will argue and argue and argue. And so I guess my question is, how in the hell did we write a book this freaking long ago and billions of people are living by it today? I want to write the next book like that.
I would like to challenge you. I want to know, I'm getting right back into, so it's really cool, like the shift that happens, like, okay, I leave the church, I'm into spirituality and the woo and metaphysics. And now all of a sudden, like my mind's being opened. I'm like, well, maybe I should check the Bible for X, Y,
You
Z.
absolutely should.
And,
Right.
right? And I came across this. I talked to these gals, are the scriptures. Now, I'm not this is just for me. I love the wording in this book because it the attempt these people made was to go back before everybody edited it and retranslated and went back. So I'm curious now that I have this on some of those phrases. Only through Jesus Christ can you be saved. Like I want to see what like the older stuff had said, and reinterpret and reconnect with it and see what I get from it. What does that truly mean on a energetic level? What was the point they were trying to get across? Because at the time, I mean, that's probably what Missy said, that's what was needed in the moment. That's what was needed to get people to understand and really put words to what the hell was happening with all these miracles, right?
It definitely served a purpose.
Some of those books, I believe, were actually very politically,
Yes.
I agree.
Written.
Yep.
So, anyway.
Yeah. So I challenge people, I guess, here my point is to sit with any of those verses, even if it's a regular Bible, and go, okay, well, what does that truly resonate with? Use it as an intuitive exercise or whatever, meditation. What's it really say for me? Because taking it word for word is a political agenda, is a fear-based, is, whatever it all is. It's that systemic thing. And we can take this. That doesn't say, too, if you're in your religion and spirituality, it doesn't mean that this book can't be good along your path. It doesn't mean it can't serve its purpose and give
there's
you
so much good stuff. The Bible is full of rich, amazing material. I really, it's not the Bible. It's not church that bothers me. It's what the humans have done with it.
What were you going to say, Randy?
Getting me all fiery now.
Yeah. Ugh. I just wonder sometimes, some of the miracle stories that you read about in the Bible, did they really happen? Or were they just like, hey, let's tell this story to people so that we can instill more fear?
I see some of it too as
probably
fables.
both.
It's both, I think. And there's also fables, like sometimes when you read, just like when you read a fiction book, a novel that hits you in your core and you're like, that changed the so it doesn't matter. Again, when I tell people, it doesn't matter if it was Hawk coming in or Archangel Michael or if it was freaking my neighbor's past dog, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It's the messaging and what it did for me. So
that's a really good point.
I kind of get past the whole did it happen, didn't it happen? But then in the metaphysical side, we see miracles happen all the time. We do work. I sit with somebody and see that transformation and go, well, how can I then discredit maybe some of these stories? Were they amplified or just to get the point across? Maybe. But it tells me that I don't have to live in this pain, in this hurt, in this whatever. I can transform that and be, a whole amazing spiritual lightened type being. So I think some of it too is getting past some of the, even mine, that's why my journey the last few years is getting past my blinders and my boxed in view of religion and my story early on so that I can see it for what it can be.
And I will say sometimes I still get triggered by the church, or not the church specifically, or the Bible, or any of that, but the words that family members have used against me.
Yes.
In terms of religion, in terms of church, and not being a Christian, not going to church, not practicing the way that they would. Like the Bible specifically was used against me by my sister. And she said, where in the Bible does it tell you that any of this is okay? And like I told you guys last week, when I started really... right before I did my Reiki masterclass, I really started exploring that. Where does it in the Bible tell me that this is okay? And it led me down some really wonderful paths. And I do see that the Catholic Church, does not prohibit this kind of thing. And so for I think I spent 2 full days doing this, and I would write down scriptures and things like that and resources. And then at the very end, I was just like, who am I going to use this with? I mean, am I really going to send this to my sister and say, here you go, here's my bibliography? Here's where it shows. Go look it up yourself. I was like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because she doesn't believe it, and it doesn't impact me
Right.
to not go forward.
Have you had opportunity to use that moving forward with any clients or with anybody who might be questioning getting a service or go, but I'm conflicted with my religion. Is this okay? And then have you been
Yeah.
able to then
Yeah.
give them with that information?
Yeah. Not specific passages or scriptures or anything like that, but just enough where I'm like, you know what, I went through the same thing and I did my own searching, and I promote, or I prompt you to do the same. If you're really questioning this, just start doing your research. Because at some point you can do all of the practical and the heady kind of stuff that you want to. What really matters is what's in your heart, and that's what's going to guide you eventually. You're going to get so sick of your head being in your way. You'll just follow your heart.
100%.
Yeah. So,
What do you guys say when someone says that it's in the Bible? You can't talk to a sorcerer or what else do they call us in the Bible? Fortune teller. I mean, it's in Leviticus, and I know Saul consulted a way shower, and that ended up not working out so well. So I guess if you were confronted by that, what would your response be?
so somebody that's coming to you for a service, or somebody that you're seeing and
Or somebody, yeah, who's like just messaging you and saying,
I would just
tell
be
me how
done.
this is okay. Tell me how this is okay.
Why should I
It's a-
have to tell another person that it's okay? If they don't feel like it's okay, they shouldn't be coming to me.
Because I want to be convinced. Because I want you to convince me that it's okay for me to come see you. Because in the Bible it says, no.
It's
I
like they
don't do
really were
that.
longing for it. Like they're, deep down, like, I know I want to see you, but I'm trying to be around the whole Bible crap that I'm fearing or whatever.
I guess I would turn it around on them and just ask, what is holding you back from this? Like, why are you concerned? I mean, I can't tell you why it's okay for you if you don't know why you're not okay with it.
Well, I'm interested, but the Bible says it's bad. And I want to go to heaven and have eternal life.
I would also then say, well, how much of the other stuff that the Bible says is bad that you do on a daily life?
You're real shit.
Are you talking about my period?
No.
Or like birth control, whatever.
There are so many things in the Bible, and that was my point, is that I want someone, yes, I want to walk with you through this journey, but I also don't want to spoon feed you, which in my opinion is what oftentimes happens in organized religion. I do not mean the Bible. I do not mean ministers. This is a very super enormous broad generalization. I want to think for myself. I want to sit with the Bible. I want to meditate on a passage, or pray on a passage, or contemplate a passage, or be with a study group. That was my jam. Like, yes, let's dig into this, but let's also consider the history, the social architecture, geography. There are all these things that play into it. Then you've got translation. There are so many factors, and there's a rich story. But is it something I can pull out of it to apply to my life and be perspective shifting for me?
Was
Sorry,
Jesus
Randy.
a prophet?
I think they were all channels. That's my opinion.
I mean, because in the Bible it also says, take the gifts that I have and go on and pass those on. We're all teachers, we're all healers, we're all prophets. So
now I'm thinking.
All this you can do and more.
Right.
So if we all have
you're all
this,
made in my image.
He was a way shower.
Yes. He was totally a wayfinder.
well, so I'm kind of thinking then with that, aspect, if we're thinking outside the box a little bit, if I have it, if we all are healers and showers and da 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 da, and it's saying don't go to a prophet or a fortune teller or whatever, is that just saying, wait, hold up? You got the answers within. All you need to do is look within. You don't need this external force because you may potentially, we are still human. We still may be guided in a way that might not benefit for our highest good. So it's saying, look within. You don't need to go to those. You're having a misfortune by going to those because you didn't trust yourself because you're looking for outside validation.
I think that's the whole story of Saul. Is
You just
that
put yourself out of a job now, Jen.
Good. You can do it. Don't
It
do
really-
the things.
it really is about a perspective, isn't it? I mean, like you just offered a whole nother perspective that had religion gone a totally different direction instead of I'm going to, be politically or control motivated. What a different world we would have lived in.
It's just because our little monkey brains can't.
If I were,
Lena, were you going to say
Yeah.
something?
okay, I was just gonna say that if I remember correctly, I think the way that the Catholics look at prophets is different. I think they look at them as more as interpreters of scripture. Like whenever you would go to mass and there would be like a reading from the prophet Isaiah, it wasn't that he was a prophet downloading something to share with people. It was that he was interpreting the scripture, and then that's what made him a prophet. So I think in that aspect it's slightly different from what we look at now
But my
as
point
being a
is-
prophet.
Jesus spoke directly to God, right?
Right.
And then he came out and he said, "You're all just made in the image of me, so can't you speak directly to God too?" And
Exactly.
aren't there other people that speak directly to God that may be getting messages for you because maybe you can't hear?
We've got some comments here I think we should look at.
Agreed.
How far back?
Um,
I'll pull them up on the screen here. I like something
Sarah?
that Jake. Go ahead.
Sorry, Sarah. What did Randy say that was heavy, Sarah?
Oh,
My
about
mom's-
my mom
Oh,
telling me that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fine.
God actually wants for us is more than the Bible. 100% it's bigger than the Bible. Yep.
I find
Suzanne, we're all trying to find our way.
Yeah. I think the biggest shift in mindset for me was when I started to look at Jesus specifically as being an ascended master, as opposed to the one and only that you could ever work with until the end of time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, it wasn't just him, right? So that opens some doors.
And I think that's a great point because, you also have, what are some of the others, like Buddha or
Kuan Yin.
Kuan Yin. Who's the big one from Islam? Anyway, you have all of these people all over the world. We have a huge globe. We all have a different culture. We all interpret the world very, very differently based on where we live, where we're born, who our family is, how they raise us. So somebody who was born into Shintoism in Japan is not going to buy into a Christian God, most likely. And that's just because of environment and culture. So it's pretty narrow-minded of us to think that there is just this one avenue to commune with Creator. And luckily, I think most people that I know that are very religious see that. They don't think that it's the one and only thing, but I think they understand that it's the thing for them. And I've noticed
And
more
that's
and more,
what's important.
there's more
What's
and more
for
people
you?
in my own family who are like, "Oh, tell me more about this and why do you do
Right.
it?" Oh, that makes sense for you.
I
Oh,
Googled it, Randy. For Islam, it's Muhammad.
There we go.
Oh.
Muhammad.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Lena.
Suzanne, what is Suzanne mentioning here? I think the spiritual side helps to balance the fear and helps to grow.
Yep.
Oh, religion versus spiritual, and the spiritual
Mm.
side helps to balance the fear.
Yep. So I have, I know plenty of people who are both religious and spiritual, or who honor the religious in their life with the spiritual, like Suzanne's talking about. And then I know a lot of people also who are just very, very religious. And, I try and understand what they get from just a very religious, not just a very religious existence, like without the spiritual. And I guess I can't say that they're not spiritual because I'm not within their being to know what their personal relationship with God is. But I think for some people, the religious is very important because they need that sense of community, and they need the structure
Fellowship.
of the fellowship and the structure of, this is how we do this. If I go to 10:30, service, we're going to have communion. But if I go to the 8 o'clock one in the morning, there won't be communion. So, but they need that structure. Whereas with a spiritual path, it's all about you and your relationship with whatever. And
I think that's what caused
feels
me to make
good and what feels good, and kind of coming up with your own way of worshiping and not having to be stagnant all the time.
I think that's what's caused me to make the big shift in my life was I did not want to be a Sunday Christian. I thought God belongs in everything, in all things. And there's no reason that it has to be restricted to a Sunday morning. Do I see the other perspective? Absolutely. But for me, I wanted it in all things. And it's not just God, it's creator. And I'm aware, but
Yeah.
I would agree. And growing up in the Catholic Church, I very much understand the comfort that comes with ritual. Of at this point we stand here, we kneel here, we stand here, we do communion here, we sing this, and here we say that, all together. But it's also a very stifling way of doing things and kind of keeping people in a box instead of giving the freedom to explore. But that being said, there are people that I connected with, and like one of the fathers from the church, like every time I see him, I just want to run up and hug him. Hi, Father, how are you? But there's room for both. There's having the ritual and the comfort in that, but then there's also the importance of understanding that do what feels right for you. I don't know.
It reminds me of the rituals, like if you were into witchcraft or whatever, it's very similar.
Just gonna say that.
Follow,
Yeah.
and you're what you're doing, and I understand witchcraft really just explains it. I think a little bit more as to why you do this or why you would want to maybe do this, versus the church. Sometimes it's just like, this is it. It's what we do. So I love the feeling of like I'm honoring and I'm putting time in, and it's just like when you're baking or something, like I put the eggs in now and I do this and I'm making sure I'm mindful. There's a mindfulness to it. Some people are just kind of going through the motions, and that's on
Right.
them. I think that's kind of regurgitating, but if you're really in it and being mindful, that ritual can be a huge transformative process for a lot of people. So that's their time to do it, and then hopefully they're carrying it through the week. I'm not a ritualistic person, but after going through some things, I'm kind of finding where damn it, I like the structure a little bit sometimes, where I can get to feel it's all laid out for me. I don't have to think about it. I get to do the things and then feel whatever, because I know this is laid out. I don't have to be like, okay, well, what am I going to do next? So there is a time and place for, I think, all of it.
That is fascinating to me. Like I would envision you as just, I'm gonna flow by the seat of my pants kind of thing and do as I'm called to do, that you would find comfort in a ritual. And I think that that's important, that people
Rituals are really important to help us focus, though, to
Right.
get into the right mindset. And so, even if it's sitting down to say morning prayers or something, there's oftentimes people have a very ritualistic way of doing that. You know, they get their sage out, they bless the four directions to get into that mindset to prepare themselves to be centered.
And I think I am much more go with the flow. I'm more ceremony than ritual, in most cases. But it is nice sometimes to be just to have it laid out, to get in the zone. Like Andy said, you're preparing the space and the vessel, and that you can just then jump right into that communion. That
It's
you
just
know,
like an easing your way in.
Yeah, Jen or
Yeah.
Suzanne says here, good one, Jen, easier connection when you don't have to feel like you're trying so hard. Randy was my Reiki teacher, and I have to admit to not really I had kind of a complex after I went through that in terms of the whole thing about setting up sacred space. I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't do enough. We don't do anything. We just sit down and shit happens. I don't like, what? And I made sure that we asked our guides, are we not doing enough? Do you want me to light a candle? Does this need to happen? Because when we first started, the way my mom taught us how to do what we do, it was different than the way we do it now. We just sit down and it happens and it's done. Mm-hmm. So there was no ritual about it. But they said, you're fine. That's who you are as a being. Mm-hmm. This person wants to set up sacred space. That fits with that.
It's a ritual to get you into the space.
I think it also shows gratitude and sovereignty to the beings that are coming in. Because honestly, sometimes my space isn't so sacred.
Tell us more about that.
So
yes, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the tawdry side of things.
What's going on over there?
So, so sometimes you just want
imagine.
to clear this out, and it is fun to be, it's sometimes you get stuck in the ritual, and we get kind of like we lose that connection sometimes because you just go through the motions and you rush through it. So I think it's a good balance, and sometimes it's just about, okay, I'm here and I'm turning it on and let's go. But I think part of it is you give gratitude often, Missy, to the guides that are helping you. And so that I think part of it is ritual to me, at least in the way witchcraft type thing that I studied, is that it's giving gratitude. It's being respectful to the guides, angels, and allies that are coming in. It's saying, hey, I've set the space up. It's kind of like if you invite somebody over for dinner and then you provide them with a freaking lawn chair and, popped popcorn for dinner, or some shit. Like you're like, oh, I didn't put any time into this. Here you go.
You made me popcorn?
Ooh.
I'll be right there.
I didn't vacuum or dust, whatever.
You're just gonna have to deal with this sitting out, or that, it's like when someone comes over, you kind of create that. You tidy up a bit, or we plan a meal, or we do something. Otherwise, you're gonna sit on the floor, and I'm gonna sit here and just expect you to be my friend.
I never thought about that. That's an awesome. I love metaphors. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So same thing with church. Coming back to the church is that they're just trying to help you set up the building blocks, in my opinion, for you to carry it through.
Well, and that was a question I had. Just what do you think? I mean, in both cases, I think. Now I'm just talking about a purely spiritual person and a purely religious person. Both people are searching for something, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think, how am I going to say this? Do you think people are usually religious first and then ease into the spiritual side? And of course, that's going to not include all of the people that have never been religious or have gone to church. I mean, for me, it was a very clear transition. It was like, I'm not getting exactly everything that I need to out of this church, out of this avenue, out of this way of seeking. So it naturally led to like the more spiritual, and looking for that direct connection and relationship with creator?
I'm gonna say I think up until I don't know how long until the woo has become more mainstream, that would probably be yes.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, I think part of what I see is they come from a systemic structure of some sort, whether that's religion or whether that's from nothing and actually just grinding away at life in general. And my work is my main thing, or grind, grind, grind. That whole boxy systemic programming, if you will, and then they find something. But it is very common. Obviously, we know people coming from religion into the woo and the metaphysics is one of the main
Do
healing
you
points for a lot of
think
people.
do you think both people are searching for the same things? Your religious person and your spiritual person, are they seeking the same thing? Or do you think what they're seeking is what directs them either way?
Mm.
I think very bottom layer, everyone is looking for the acceptance and freedom of non-judgment. I think you're okay. You're an okay human being. You're safe. I mean, like, I think that's at the very bottom layer of everything.
Hmm. We're just searching. We need that connection to source, however it is. We need to know that, like you said, we're okay and we're whole, and we are finding our way back home, if you will. And however you find that, so I think whether it's, I think a lot of our wounding, our core wounds and stuff show first, obviously. Well, I'm searching for, you know, this, or I'm searching for that, but like Missy said, underneath it all, what's that really say? I need to just search that oneness, that source energy.
My church experience was very positive. I could not have loved that chapter of my life more. The people that I met, my pastor that was at the church at the time is my friend on Facebook. I like he would be a go-to person for me if I needed something. Him and his wife both. Like the whole community was amazing. And they had programs where they would explore other things. So I really think they were giving a lot to the community. And I think that those are rare gems because I don't think that that is a lot of people's experience. I think a lot of people's experience is you go to church, you sit in a pew, you repeat a prayer, you sing the same song, you repeat another prayer, you get absolved of all your sins because I'm a pastor and I put this wafer in your mouth. Like that piece of it, I was not a fan of. But if you are in a culture where you can think and feel and explore, and I think questions bring you closer to God. Question everything. I've always taught my kids or told my kids that. Ask these questions, ask the hard questions because you're going to grow. But in another religion, had I been raised in a different religion, you don't ask questions in certain religions. This is the way it is. You accept it or you're shunned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I also had good church experiences. I mean, my whole friend group was in church with me. And so we would all sing in the choir together, and we would go to the church after school, and hang out there because, well, they didn't lock the doors or the communion wine up, so
Nice.
Damn it, we didn't get wine.
We got grape juice. What the hell?
No.
well, they locked the
grape
doors
juice
of
and
the
bread.
church now.
It's because
I
of
wonder
people
why,
like you,
Randy.
Randy.
I know. And my mom she's the head of the altar guild. so
I love it.
I was drinking her wine. Well. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions or any comments that we should tap into? That was a pretty cool conversation, though. I think that went better than we all were anticipating.
On the fly, totally.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, you just never know when you bring this up where it's gonna go and how worked up we might get, or
I think religion, yeah, I think the four of us are very level-headed, so I was pretty confident it was going to be fine, but I think you could break it down into little finer pieces. That would get people a little more fiery.
Yeah, I'd love our crowd to get a little more fiery, and
Right?
I think it's hard though in this avenue. I think face to face or something it could be really dynamic. So
Well, and I think piece by piece too. Like, let's talk about the fact that women couldn't read the Bible for X hundred of years. You weren't allowed to read the Bible because you were a chick. Like that was a thing. You weren't worthy. There are so many
Now
pieces
we're all
of
triggered.
this. Yeah. There are so many or religions that don't allow women to be ministers. Or, all of the things. I think that's where you get into some conversations that can be a little more.
But when you find those are all human-based stuff, right? Those are all, I mean, that's all humans putting in words into God's mouth almost, if you will. So that's not really a religion or I guess a scripture thing. That's a human thing, right?
Yep.
Suzanne, what
you
was
just
the-
said something really interesting. You said that's not a religion thing, that's a human thing. Isn't all religion just a human thing? I caught you.
You did. See, and again, well, I'm so like my religion and spirituality. It's all. I guess I don't have a religion. I guess I'm melding a lot of spirit. I'm not separating it as much as, And then you have that because your view. Today you've been very like, to make it clear and easy to get the points across. And me, I'm still like, what is all this? It's all interconnected and. But I guess it's not. Let's say. Yeah, I think you caught me. You just caught me. How about that?
Oh, I wasn't trying.
No, I know, but
I just thought it was
brings up
really interesting.
It brings up a good point that I'm still into that, not quite the same mindset. Which is okay. Which is why we do these things and talk about it.
God, I get so much out of this. I get so much out of these Sunday conversations, you guys, that I'm so happy other people are watching, but even if nobody watched us, I'd still want to do it. Or participated, or, yeah.
Because so much comes from, it's that fellowship piece. I mean, if you want to use church words, and that's what we're doing today, we're using church words. It's that fellowship. And I know the Presbyterians, we like to eat together.
Oh, yes.
Sharing a meal,
Maybe we're
that's a whole thing.
Presbyterians.
They have the good bread, too. They don't have the wafers. We got the good bread.
Right? No wafers for
man.
us.
Oh, I was loving it when it was our turn to prepare for communion because we had so much of that bread.
And then
Apparently I
my mom would
missed
bring
out.
that bread home and she'd give it to the birds.
Oh, jeepers.
No, we
That's
had
not sacrilegious.
the old
That's what I
biddies.
wondered.
We had all the old biddies in the basement fighting for the leftovers.
Church ladies
yeah.
are funny.
Oh god!
This was not my experience at all. We had the wafers, and after you got done, you were like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I need,
Can I get some more
I need
wine,
another.
please?
Yes.
I need another shot of wine.
You're laughing out of the
Bring that
holy
back.
water. In the
That's
back.
why when I do go to church, I grab 2 glasses when I go up.
Right, that's
Oh, see,
why.
they still make this.
It isn't that
they
it's
don't
wine in
do
the
it-
glass. You're,
They don't do individual shots in the Catholic Church.
You
You
have to
all
be in
drink
the
out of
back
the same
pew.
glass.
The communal.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
It's
that's
like
when you
you
just
do.
chug
Can we
it.
just, ew.
I ran out.
Why would you
Refill.
do that?
They wipe it with a cloth, Missy.
They do. Yep.
Still, I don't.
Yeah. It's optional, but yeah.
I bet it's real optional.
It's
now
only
with COVID.
optional if you don't want to be
Exactly.
absolved of all your sins. If I want to be absolved, I have to share a cup with you and you and you, and I have no idea where your mouth has been.
But Missy, we are all one.
You quickly learn the loopholes and how to get around certain things.
No.
I
Oh,
know.
Lord.
I'm just being comical. I'm not being an asshole.
No, I'm with you though. Like, there's too many germs.
Yeah.
We may all be one gen, but we all have separate germs. And I don't want any of
seriously,
your
I have
eyes.
no idea where that mouth has been.
We don't want to. Okay.
Especially,
That might
I'm
be a
just
good way
gonna.
to sign off.
Oh,
I narrowly avoided a Catholicism joke there.
I
oh.
was gonna say, being the only single person, I'm not worried about mine, but y'all do whatever.
Let's see here.
Okay, Suzanne did have a question. The witchcraft part of having structure.
You're talking about ritual.
Ritual. So yeah, ritual. I just using witchcraft as a religion there because they do rituals often, and it was just a good kind of mirror, I guess, of the.
Rachel.
Oh Lord, it would be a good mirror of the
I love
Catholicism
that.
and their stuff. So
Rachel's comment. Would it be wrong just to bring your own bottle of wine? I love you.
Seems like a pandemic appropriate to me.
yes.
It seems highly appropriate, yeah.
Well, I think, did we hit everybody's comments and questions and
We had a good chunk of them.
wonderances?
I think that the subject of religion could be multiple, like big pieces. I mean, you
I
could
would
break
love
this
that.
down into as many pieces as you wanted. You could make a study group out of it.
And it's not just Christianity, and I mean that's our focus because that's
No, right?
our knowledge, right, and our experiences. But I mean,
Right.
whew, you got all of the world religions, and
But no way is the wrong way. No way is the right way. We all end up in the same place.
Your way is the right way. Yeah.
That's right. It's whatever resonates with you. So
And you-
As
you
long
don't
as you're not
have-
being a dick, you know, like that's like my favorite.
you're not
little,
killing babies or puppies.
my little Buddhist meme. My favorite little Buddhist meme is him sitting there all chunky and says, "Don't be a dick." Like that's just. Don't be a dick.
yeah, and
That-
you can be into Christianity and into the woo. I guess is a big point too. You can meld it all. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can be a Christian witch as well. There's a lot of things conflicting with that, and you can know. I mean, all of it.
I think there's a
So-
lot of flavors of whatever you find. If you find a few people to share who share your common beliefs, then I think you can do anything. Wherever two or more are gathered in his name.
Love that. All right. I hope you all have a good
Yeah.
week. If you have comments or suggestions for next week's conversation, let us know at some point, and we will probably latch right onto that because we spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out what to talk about.
Because we are people pleasers.
Yes! We are here
Not
for
because we're
you.
desperate. We're not desperate. We're people
No,
pleasers.
no, not at all. All right. Bye,
Bye,
y'all.
guys. Was that Houston coming?